Welcome to Life Matters. My name is Brendan O'Connell. Growing up in Jamaica Plains section of Boston in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, my neighborhood was teeming with children and teenagers. Today, I see very few. Boston's not alone. Nationally and worldwide, birth rates have dropped precipitously. One can reasonably conclude the sober reality that humanity is failing to reproduce itself. Why is this so? What changed in the last 40 or 50 years? What does it mean to our future and for generations that follow us? Can we as a society reverse these pernicious and cataclysmic trends that of persistent low birth rates portend? Our guest today will address these issues. He represents an important voice in the broad mosaic of the Right to Life movement. I confidently believe you'll find today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Today's guest graduated from Boston University with a liberal arts degree in 1969 and 3 years later from Boston University Law School. He was a Boston Herald editorialist and syndicated columnist from June of 1983 till June of 2002, writing over 2,000 articles, I believe. He's a prolific writer, debater, and public speaker in America and around the world. He has his own media political consulting firm, Don Feder Associates. I guess I gave away the name of the guest. Among his many involvements, he is currently Communications Director of the World Congress of Families. Well, welcome to our guest, Don Feder.
Well, thank you, Brendan. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Before we get started, I'd just like to mention the call-in phone number should our guest have any questions. The number is 617-708-3290. Well, Don, what does the term demographic winter mean?
It's a good question. Demographic relating to population. Obviously, population increase, in this case, population decline. Winter, a time of decay, quiescence, no growth, static. And that's what we're seeing today in birth rates worldwide. As you mentioned, Brendan, the birth rate has fallen precipitously. How precipitously? In 1970, worldwide, the average woman had 6 children. Today it's 2.8 and falling. Now 2.1 is replacement level, which is where the United States is at this point in time. But there are a lot of countries all over the world where the birth rate is well below replacement, where the population is simply not replacing itself. For instance, Russia has a birth rate of 1.17 versus 2.1 for replacement.
Wow, that's very low. What's the cause of that?
Oh, there are a lot of factors. One is abortion. There are 105 abortions for every 100 live births in Russia, believe it or not.
Amazing.
And there's, people are leaving the country. There's emigration. There are other factors. Russian men die very young due to a number of conditions in the country. But generally, in Europe, for instance, put Russia aside for a moment. In Europe, in the European Union as a whole, the birth rate is 1.5. Again, well below replacement, 2.1. Countries like Italy and Spain, the birth rate is 1.2, 1.1.
Wow, that's incredibly low. Why do you think it's important to have the replacement replacement population? What is the, I guess that's a very broad question.
No, it's a good question, Brendan. The one irreplaceable ingredient of civilization is people. You can have a thriving civilization without natural resources, without much arable land, with all kinds of shortages. The one thing you can't do without is people. In the course of history, there's never been an instance of a country with a thriving economy and a declining birth rate. And that's what you have today in most of the Western world.
Now, that's something. Isn't the world population, though, still increasing?
Oh, sure it is. It's like a car going downhill that's in neutral. You're not putting your foot on the gas, and the car is moving forward of its own momentum. And that's what we're seeing today in terms of population. Is population increasing? Absolutely. What's interesting, though, is the number of children is declining.
It's declining.
Declining. There are 9 million fewer children under 6 in the world today than there were in 1990. Now, that may not seem like much, but according to the UN Population Division, if current trends continue, by the year 2050, there will be 248 million fewer children under 5 than there are now.
And will the population, why is the world having an increasing population right
Well,
now?
the world's having an increasing population now because there was a population boom after the Second World War. It lasted from roughly 1946 to about 1964, at least in this country. Up until the mid-1960s, worldwide you had a growing population. And that population growth carried over that and the fact people are living longer. 50 years ago, people were dying 20 years younger than they are today. So that's kept the statistics up. But you see your future not in current population, Brendan, but in the birth rate. In the birth rate and the number of children. And if you look at those two factors, you can say, yes, population is continuing to grow. At some point in this century, population growth will stop, population decline will set in, and at some point it will become runaway population decline.
As the aging population can't reproduce itself.
That's
basically.
right. Again, by 2050, in most developed countries, there'll be 2 people over 60 for every child.
Wow, that's...
Yeah, wow, indeed.
Let me ask you, what I've read a little bit about this, and the names Malthus, Ehrlich come up, Clubber Rome. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thomas Malthus was he was actually a clergyman, an amateur economist. He wrote in the late 18th century, and Malthus said essentially, population will increase exponentially, whereas food production will only increase geometrically. And Malthus said that without constant war and epidemic, population would become unsustainable by early in the 19th century, if you can believe that. So 200 years ago, Malthus was talking about overpopulation. Paul Ehrlich...
Was hygiene part of Malthus' item too, another better drinking water and that sort of thing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Many people weren't thinking about that in the late 18th century.
Okay.
Then in 1969, Paul Ehrlich comes along. Ehrlich, by the way, is an entomologist. And he predicts that population will grow to the extent that world food production won't be able to keep up with it by the early 1970s. And by the mid-1970s, there's going to be worldwide famine. Well, obviously, that never happened. Interestingly enough, we have, I think, about 6.1 or 6.3 billion people today on Earth. United Nations Population Division says that this Earth, current technology, current resources, could support 36 billion people.
36.
36. You could put every person on Earth into the state of Texas, and they'd have roughly 12,000 square feet of living space.
Wow. That's really something. So basically,
I'm sorry, I say 12,000, I meant 1,200.
1,200, yeah.
1,200.
It's amazing to me that 6 times the population that we currently have, because you have, I guess, a lot of things that are driven by the other side. They say we have a population boom and we can't possibly support all these
And
things.
they've been saying it for 200 years, and they've been wrong for the last 200 years, and they're wrong now.
And what is it because we have better ways of productivity, whether it's farming?
Yes. I mean, food production has increased exponentially since the end of World War II. That's part of it. Part of it, again, is the fact that people are the one resource you can't do without. And the most intriguing thing about people is they think. And by thinking, they invent new machines, they invent new ways of doing things, they find resources that we didn't know were there before. So more people generates more wealth, makes it possible to sustain more people. And the proof of that, Brendan, is the fact that some of the most prosperous countries on Earth have the highest population density.